Future. Okay, well, welcome everybody. If you all want to get onto mute, we are going to start with a quiz question. So we're going to start with a chat question. All right, so the first question is, my experience with golf outings is, A, I play in both competitive and recreational tournaments. B, I play in charity or corporate outings, but they're mostly about fun. C, I volunteered at a tournament, but I've never played in one. D, my only experience with tournaments is watching them on television or maybe going to a PGA event. Or E, I'd love to play, but I'm not ready yet. So if you just want to type in there, A, competitive, B, just charity for fun, C, I volunteer, but I've never played in one, D, I like to watch them on TV, or E, I've never played in one and I don't think I'm ready yet. All right, so we have a couple B's, A's, D. Okay, well, today's virtual event is called the No Fear Golf Outing, and it is sponsored by Betsy Bishop. Betsy, say hello. And Betsy is with a consultant with Touchstone Crystal. And when you're on the golf course, if you're not going to get noticed for your swing, you want to get noticed for your bling. Okay, so I'd like to introduce Betsy. And Betsy, you are not on the mute, right?
Correct, I'm off mute.
Okay, so I'm going to share my screen with you, and we're just going to introduce Betsy real quick.
Oh, that's nice, thank you. Nice to see everyone. Great to meet some new friends all over the country. So Donna is showing a fun little video introducing our fall line. I work with Touchstone Crystal by Swarovski, and it's the 17th division of Swarovski Crystal, which is, some of you may know, it's a 125-year-old crystal manufacturer from Austria. So they created this line about 10 years ago just for the American market, just for entrepreneurial women who want to have their own businesses. And I was the first rep in the company 10 years ago. We are a sister division to all the boutiques and shops around the world, that maybe the ones that you see in your own airport, the cruise line that you went on last, your local shopping center. But you can't buy any of our jewelry in any of those places. These are all exclusive to the Touchstone Crystal line. Half the line is under $50. It's all nickel free, so we don't have any of those allergens and things that a lot of the jewelry out there has. And we also offer a lifetime replacement guarantee, so we always have your back. Donna always says, leave your real jewelry behind. And so we have your bling for swing. And we specialize in wrist parties. In fact, this is one for example. And, but we also have beautiful rings, beautiful necklaces and earrings as well for mixing and matching and for the holiday season.
Very nice. Okay, and yes, as Betsy is correct, we've had many women out on the golf course with their real diamond jewelry, the back falls out of their earring, and there it goes. So these are actually the Touchstone Crystal earrings, which I wear all the time on the golf course, so they're great to have for golf. So let's start talking about golf outings. When I go around a lot of different offices and ask people, do you want to play in a golf outing? A lot of people, the F word comes to mind, which means fear. So people are feared they're not good enough, they don't know the rules, and the list just goes on and on why people don't participate. So I found that just using the word tournament evokes a lot of fear. So at Women on Course, you'll notice that we don't use that word. We start out with outings or events, and just changing the terminology kind of gives you a tone of what to expect. So before you actually sign up on the dotted line for a tournament or an outing, you want to make crystal clear, no pun intended, that you know what you're signing up for and you know what you're getting into. Because there's many different formats and there's many different reasons why people will do tournaments. So for this presentation, we are going to talk about different formats. We're going to talk about handicaps and how that factors into tournaments and team building. We're going to talk about tournament lingo and tournament contests. Okay, so we're going to cover those 4 areas. So I have with us today Susan Bond, and she is a member of the PGA of America. She's a PGA professional, and yes, women can be PGA professionals. It stands for Professional Golf Association, and both men and women can be certified. So that's where Susan is. She's been doing this for 29 years. She's originally from New England and Florida, and she's currently living in Newburgh, Indiana. So we'll tell you where that is. She has played in many different tournaments, and she's a 3-time winner of the New England Women's Open, the Tennessee Senior Women's Open, and the Florida Senior Professional Women's Open, among others. So not to intimidate you with all these wins that she has, she's also the relationship advisor for PGA Magazine. So Susan, welcome.
Oh, thank you, Donna. Thank you. And it's nice to meet all of you ladies. Love your jewelry, Betsy, and thank you for being a partner of this event. So this is great. So yes, Donna, it's wonderful to see new women coming into the game of golf. And we want you to get out there and enjoy yourself with business golf or corporate golf and just playing with each other. Again, we just made a connection between two in Denver, so we better hear a story that you guys met up some weekend out there. So there are, I think the main tournament that I always, when I was teaching in the Boston area, I'd get a lot of women coming and they said, I need to take golf instruction because I'm playing in a tournament at XYZ club in a couple months. And I'm like, okay, well, just breathe is the first thing. And what type of format is it? And they're like, it's a best ball. I'm like, uh-oh.
So Susan, so we're gonna have a question first to ask before we.
I'm sorry. I'm so excited to share all this.
So that's okay. So we're gonna ask a question, everybody. So get your chat ready. All right, and Susan has said best ball. So what is a best ball format? Okay, A, it's where the winner is determined by the individual player with the lowest score for the round. Okay, the person with the lowest score is the winner. B, it's a team format where each player counts her strokes for the hole, and the best score for that hole is written on the scorecard. So it's a hole-by-hole team format. C is a hole-by-hole competition where each hole is won by the lowest score. Or D, it's a team format where each player takes a shot from the same spot, and the ball that is decided to be in the best position is where the team takes their next shot. So let me say that again. Best ball is where a winner is determined by the individual player with the lowest score for the round. Or B, it's a team format where each player counts her own strokes for that hole, and the best score on that hole is written on the card for the team. Okay. C, it's a hole-by-hole competition where each hole is won by the individual with the lowest score. So one is an individual format and one is a team format. And the last one is a team format where each player takes a shot from the same spot, and the ball that is in the best position is where they take their next shot. That's a mouthful.
Yeah.
Okay, so some of you who guessed B got it correct. So best ball is a format that requires everyone keeps their own score the whole way through, okay? And after hole 1, whichever scores the lowest, that's what's written down. And the very first tournament I played in was a best ball tournament, and I was expecting something else. And I said, you mean I have to hit the ball the whole way through? And they go, yeah. So that was a disaster. So what I was really thinking is that I was entering a scramble. So Susan, scramble is one of the most common tournaments. Tell us about how a scramble works.
Yes, a scramble is it could be a team of 2, 3, 4, and sometimes even 5, depending on the size of the event and the charity or the fundraising tournament. So what happens in that, each team should have an A, B, C, D player, and possibly a E if it's, again, a fivesome. And how this format works is everyone would tee off. You go to the best shot, wherever that happens to be, and then everyone hits from there. That's where it gets a little confusing when beginners say they're playing in a best ball and they get and I'm like, oh, that's a different. So scrambles should technically kind of be termed the best shot. so that everyone goes to the best shot, and that continues through to the putting surface. And that's where the higher handicaps tend to be the heroes, because we generally, they're good putters, you know, they can contribute. Maybe their ball striking isn't as good as the A and B player, but if you can putt, and putting is a pretty good equalizer, and if you make that putt, you're a rock star. You'll just be jumping up and down, and they'll be like, hey, Kathy, we need you to putt on this hole because you just made the last hole. So it's a very good format for all different levels of players.
Great. So in a scramble, let's say we all hit the ball, and we're going to use my shot. Okay.
Yay.
So where exactly do the other three people put their ball to hit their shot? Do they put it in that exact spot, or where are they allowed to put the ball?
Generally, they allow a club length from the original ball. So you would put a tee in the ground, and you might want to hit first, or you might want to get into the other rotation. But you usually put down a tee out in the fairway or in the rough, and then a ball marker on the putting surface. But out in the fairway, if your ball is in the fairway, you get one club length no closer to the hole. So it could be to the left or right of the ball. And you have to generally stay, some tournaments have local rules, but 99% of the time you have to stay in the area where the golf ball lies. So if your ball happened to be in the rough, you have to stay in the rough. If it's in the fairway, you stay in the fairway. If you're in the bunker, you'd stay in the bunker, and so forth. But sometimes clubs will do a local rule, because scrambles are usually also used for events to expedite play. It makes the round go faster. So whatever can keep the tournament going nicely and fairly quick is generally used.
Yeah, and so the second tournament I played in was a scramble, and we were on vacation in a beautiful Caribbean island, and it was the Four Seasons pastry chef, the timeshare salesperson, me and my husband, and we basically used my husband's ball the whole time. So we just went along for the ride, but every once in a while, one of our shots worked. So it's a great format for beginners because other people are going to take shots and they're not counting on you every time. Let me ask you a question, Susan. So are there any variations to a scramble? What kind of variations might people see at a scramble?
Sure. There's what we call a shamble or a step aside. I'll go to step aside first. So again, say you're a foursome, and it's Donna, myself, Kathy, and Demetrius. And Demetrius drives, she cranks one. It's out there 300 yards. So that's the best shot. She steps out. She does not hit the next shot. So if you're playing a foursome, all four people will start the hole, but for your second shot or third shot, how many it takes you to get to the putting surface, there'll only be three. So whoever shot you take sits out. So you're not always playing the best player's ball the whole entire hole, but then they get back into the rotation.
So there could be some strategy here. So let's say our ball is right in front of the water, and we want Demetrius for that next shot. We may not pick her ball because we want her to be one of the three players to hit the next ball. So we might pick something further away just to get her to be in that next rotation.
Yes, absolutely. And then on the putting green, it's usually everyone can get back in. Okay. So that's usually what happens once you're on the putting surface. So it's a fun format. And again, it's giving everyone a chance to contribute. And then again, for a higher handicap, they're back in the game on the putting green. And I've played in so many events where the C and D players have made putts, and that's where the ball gets in the hole. So we've helped them get on the green, and then they make it, and everybody, it's a team. So it's very fun.
Okay, so let's also talk about what a shamble is.
A shamble is, again, it could be a team of 2, 3, 4, and everyone tees off, and you go to the best drive, the best one, and then everyone plays their own ball from there into the hole. So if you're a higher handicap and you're playing on my team, chances are on a par 3, I'm going to hit the green, and you're going to be, and if you don't, you're going to be able to go to my ball that's on the green and start the hole. So it kind of shows you different parts of the golf course you may never see because you're going to the better player's ball to start. And with that one, there's usually a handicap involved. So if you're a 36 handicap, I'm getting a little ahead, but if you're a 36 handicap and get 2 shots and you're playing on the green, you're -2 already. So that's where you're a real rock star.
Okay.
So it's again another good format.
So again, one thing that we didn't define is stroke play. And stroke play is very simple. You play your ball into the hole. So you count every stroke and that's your score. So that's basically how you see people play their own ball. That's called stroke play. Mm-hmm. So it seems like a shamble is sort of a combination between a scramble, where you pick the best shot, and then it's stroke play from there till you get to the hole.
Yes.
So those are different ways. And then isn't there, I have played a tournament where something about everything starts out with all 4 players hit a tee shot, but there's a variation with that, right?
Yes, every event can make their own rules for that event, and it'll be on your rule sheet, but some want to have everyone contribute. So it could be, we're a team of 4, everyone has to use their drive once, sometimes twice. So there's a little bit of strategy there. It might be a long hole and you'd want to probably take the A player's ball, but the D player hit their best drive ever. So to take the pressure off them, you might sacrifice a lot of distance, but you have that person go, I'm done. I can relax now. You don't have to wait and use their drive at the 18th hole and it's a ginormous pond or something. So sometimes a little strategy that way really, really helps.
Okay, great. Any questions so far about the different formats and terminology? No?
Have any of you played in like a charity event or a foundation event, or not yet?
Not yet. So I guess the question to ask is, what is the format that you're signing up for? And I know that Susan's referred to this A, B, C, and D player. Can you explain what that means? Because the first time I heard that, I had no idea. Did I get a bad grade because I'm the D player, or I'm a C player? What does that mean, A, B, C, and D player?
It's usually, again, depending on the handicaps of everyone entering the event, and say we had, do simple math, 16 players, and you wanted to have 4 equal teams, you judge the 4 lowest handicaps, the next 4, the next 4, and the next 4, so that you'd have an A, a B, C, and D player on every team. And it usually, if you added them all up, they'll come within 1 to maybe be all even. So then you've got an equal team.
Okay, great. Let's ask another question. What is a Pro-Am tournament? Okay, A, you get to play with Susan. No, A, PGA major event that's typically in April. B, a tournament which teams up professional athletes with amateurs, people who aren't professional. C, it's a tournament with a title sponsor, typically a Fortune 500 company. Or D, it's the final test for a PGA golf pro to get his or her certification. What is a Pro-Am tournament? All right, that was an easy one. Everybody's got, that's a B. Susan, talk to us about Pro-Ams. When do you usually find these? How do they work?
Pro-Ams are usually in conjunction with a local, maybe PGA Tour, LPGA Tour event, or web.com, or not Korn Ferry now, or it could just be a group of golf professionals from the local area that create a Pro-Am at their golf course. And the team is that. It's a golf professional with 3 to 4 amateurs, and they're all playing as a team.
Okay. Now, I do know that we've been invited sometimes as Women on Course. We have Pro-Am spots where we can send an amateur, and people are like, oh no, I'm not playing with a pro. Are you kidding me? That is like the most nerve-wracking thing. But again, their formats, if it's a scramble, and you'll find professionals be very friendly, they really want you to play. One thing I want to bring up is, what is the end game for this tournament? Is it to win money, a trip to Hawaii? If the stakes are high, it's going to be competitive, okay? But if it's more to raise money for charity or to network, it's going to be more relaxed. So if there is high stake prizes, you may not want to do that one first, because it's going to be stressful, because people are there to win, okay? So is the focus on winning, or is it relationships? So that's very important to figure that out, because if you're in the wrong tournament where, hey, we're going to make it to the next level, and if you miss the putt, it could be a little nerve-wracking and stressful. So that's something I did want to point out to everybody. All right, last format is there's plenty more, but we're going to talk about one last format, is called match play. So Susan, tell us what match play is about.
Match play is a great event. It's not used on TV that often. It is for the Ryder Cup and the Solheim Cup, and then the World Golf Champ. There's another event, and I'm spacing out on the name of it. But they're used at the club level, and it is a hole-by-hole competition. So let's say Debbie and I were playing. If she makes a 3 on the first hole and I make a 7, I am not 4 down, I'm 1 down. So it's a hole-by-hole, stroke-to-stroke competition. And it's a lot of fun. It's a lot of fun.
So you get 1 point if you win the hole.
Correct. You're not in a stroke play event. I'd be 4 down to Debbie after the first hole. But with match play, I'm only 1 down. So it gives you that out. If you do have a bad hole, you have 17 left. If you lose the first hole, you could win a lot more chances.
Well, that's a lot of fun. Has anyone ever played a match play? No. Okay. Well, that's
fun.
That's fun. All right, we're going to shift gears now. We're going to talk about handicaps. Now, handicaps can get very complicated. We did another event called Golf is a Game of Numbers, but I'm going to ask you a quiz question. Of all the formats, all these formats we talked about, can they have winners? They can have winners based on your gross score or your net score. Okay, so all these formats can have 2 scores. In order to calculate a net score, you will need to have established a handicap. True or false? So in order to calculate a net score, you need to have a handicap. True or false? True, false, true, true. Okay, the answer is true. So a gross score is your score without any alteration. You just count every single stroke. And we did find out something very cool on our rules, our rules event, is that let's say you're playing a par 4. Some people, it might take them 10, 11, 12, 13. It can take a lot of shots to get in the hole, and it can be very scary if you're a beginner. Well, there's a rule now. You can only write down 5 over par. That's it. So on a par 4, the most you can score is a 9. So if you get in trouble where your ball's going all over the place, you don't have to duke it out to the end. You just write down a 9 and you're done. And a lot of people said, I didn't know that. That's amazing. So on a par 3, the most you can write down is an 8. So there is an end. All right. So Susan, we talked about how you determine teams with the A, B, and D players with the handicap. So everyone comes in with a handicap. The lower your handicap, the better you are. Do you want to just define what a handicap is for everyone?
The handicap is an equalizer so that everyone can compete, and generally your handicap will have somebody might have a really great day and they would shoot below their handicap, and then a low handicap person could have a bad day. I mean, everyone's susceptible to either way, and it could end up where the higher handicap beat the lower handicap in the net portion.
Okay, so let's say if you shot par the entire round
Mhm.
Par would be a score of 76. All right, if I have a 20 handicap, what does that mean?
If you shoot 76 with a 20, you're on my team any day.
No, I shoot, if I'm a 20 handicap, what would I be most likely to shoot on that?
The handicap equates to the average. So if the par is 76, you'd average around 96, give or take 95, 97. It's the average of the scoring. To get your handicap is to get you at your score to get you back down to par.
So in other words, if it's a 76 and I'm a 20 handicap, I'm probably going to shoot 20 strokes more.
Correct.
So if somebody is a 10, they're probably going to be 10 more. And if someone's a 30, they're going to be 30 more.
Mm-hmm.
So that's kind of what the numbers mean. All right, so here's a quiz question. To establish a handicap, how many rounds of golf do you need to play, keeping score according to the rules of golf? Because at Women on Course, you don't have to follow the rules of golf. But keeping score with how many rounds of golf do you need to establish a handicap? A, just 1 round. B, 3 rounds. C, 9 rounds. Or D, 20 rounds. B, C, B. We have some smart people. The answer is B. You only need 3 rounds. It used to be more, 3 rounds. And that equates to 56 holes of golf. And you can play that in any combination of 18 holes one day, 9 holes one day. You just have to record them in 18 or 9 holes. So once you put that into a computer, you will get a handicap. And I guess it's important to note when you sign up for a tournament, many tournaments require a handicap. That's a clue that it's going to be somewhat competitive. If it doesn't require a handicap, that's another clue. That's going to be more about fun. So you want to make sure before you stroke a check and write money to enter, you have a handicap if it's required, because you're going to scramble around trying to get some rounds in you, right? Okay. Let's talk about tournament lingo and contests. So I'm going to throw one to Susan. We didn't talk about this word, but what does a flight mean? Flight risk? You're just going to be scared and run away? What does a flight mean?
It's that thing in the bar with all the different beers. No, that is it. But now a flight is where they put, if it's a big tournament, they'll flight the players. So usually in the club championship, they'll have the 0 handicap to maybe the 10. It all depends on how many players are participating. So that would be the championship flight. And then say from an 11 handicap to a 16 would be the first flight, second flight, third flight. It's all based again on the handicapping system.
Okay. So that's important to know. If you're in a flight, it means you're kind of grouped with similar people.
So you could win, but you might be winner of the 4th flight. So you always have you always have satisfaction. So it's fun.
Okay. Good. Let's talk about a shotgun start. What does that mean?
A shotgun start is, we joke that we're all golf professionals are going to write a book. What time does the 9:30 shotgun start?
I finally get that now. I didn't get it first. Now I get it.
So if it's a 9:30 shotgun, you usually arrive for breakfast or something like that prior to, and on your cart, there will be a sign if you're riding, or if you're not, you'll be assigned, your scorecard will have the hole highlighted where you start. So if there's 18 foursomes, there'll be a group on every hole. And they'll usually ask you to go out to your hole about 10 minutes before. They'll usually make the announcements and say, okay, we'd now like you to go to your designated hole. And sometimes they shoot a gun off, some do the air horn. I mean, some places they still take that's a little scary, but the air horn is usually what you'll hear. And that is now telling all the teams to start. The reason they do that, it gets people all done around the same time. Some groups may play faster and they could be in 5 minutes before, and some play a little slower, but it really helps with the camaraderie at the end of the day for lunch and for awards or a speaker. So, and it also will open up the golf course a lot faster than if they did starting times.
Great. And the converse to that is what you normally see is consecutive tee times, where you're playing one group after the other. But in a tournament, a lot of times you'll see a shotgun start. And now this is common in a lot of charity events, but a mulligan. What is a mulligan?
A mulligan is a casual do-over. It will not be done in a club championship or a member guest or a major at a club, but some of the times in a casual round of golf, people will usually take a mulligan on the first hole if they're just going out to play in the evening and they haven't swung, and they might hit a good shot, but they're like, oh, I'm still tight, I want to hit a mulligan. It's kind of like just a practice do-over. And in charity events, they'll usually try to raise money for the organization where you can buy a mulligan. So if it was a short putt missed for an eagle, you can say, I'm going to use my mulligan, and you get another chance to try to make the putt or hit your tee shot and so forth.
So a mulligan, basically, it doesn't count. It's a shot that doesn't count.
No.
Okay.
And you won't see anyone on TV.
Okay. I'm gonna do before we move on to contests, I just want to show an example. We were talking about net score and gross score. Okay. So I'm going to share my screen here real quick, and I'm going to show you guys a scorecard. So this is a scorecard. The first time I was in a tournament and I saw a scorecard with all these dots, and my name isn't Doug White, but I had more dots than anybody. I was like, wow, I get all these dots. What do these dots mean?
The dots I had the same thing at my club. I did the same, and this woman goes, why do I have polka dots all over my scorecard? But those dots, let's take poor old Doug down here. Yeah, he's got 2 dots on the first hole. That means if he has a 4, he's made a par, he's a rock star, but his score is a 2. He's even a bigger rock star. So those dots will tell you, you take that dot off of your gross score to produce your net score. Okay.
So he's a 23 handicap, so he gets 23 dots.
Yes.
And this poor guy, he's a scratch golfer. He gets no dots.
Yep. But we want the Doug guy on our team.
So this way, if you were playing, this is why when Susan said earlier about an equalizer, if you are playing with Manny and he gets a 4 and you get a 5 even, your score is a 3. So you can use your 3 against his 4, you win. So the next scorecard, we actually have a woman, her name is Nora, and here you can see her gross score. She got a 52. And it looks like her net score, she got 13 dots, so she got a 39, her net score, correct? And a lot of times at tournaments, they'll have winners that win the gross contest and also that win the net contest.
And how do you know how many dots to assign? What do the dots indicate?
Want me to go, Donna, or you want me to?
Yeah, you can explain.
It's based on your handicap. So we've missed Joel. Let's talk to Joel here. He's got 13 is his handicap. So if we go up to the handicap line, you'll see that there's 1 to 18 in those blocks. So the 1 is the hardest hole at the golf course, and the 18, hole number 17, is the easiest. So Joel is going to get a dot on 13, 1 to 13, wherever the first, second, third, so forth, up to 13. Those are the 13 hardest holes on the golf course. So he'll need a shot to make par. Does that make sense to everybody?
Yes. I have never noticed that handicap line before in my life. So thank you.
It's here, and it is the hardest hole. So in this scorecard, 7 is the hardest hole and 17 would be the easiest hole. Mm-hmm. And sometimes you'll see 2 lines. They'll handicap for these people from these tee boxes, and they'll have another handicap. Let's see if they have it here. Yeah, this has 2. They have handicaps for the red tees and handicap for the other tees. So here, hole number 7, it's the hardest hole from the red tees, but it's the second hardest hole from these tees. So yeah, you have to go to our Golf is a Game of Numbers, and we do more numbers.
And just as if you're playing an event at a golf course where you'll be playing, all your scorecards will be marked by the team of golf professionals there. So you just have to. That's why they ask for your handicap prior. So usually the day before or 2 days before, they're doing all this for you. And if you have any questions, you can ask the professional staff when you're there.
Yeah, that's something you'll see. So it's very nice to see lots of dots. So,
Yeah.
All right, let's talk about some contests, because this is where it always gets fun. Now, this is a contest that you'll see a lot, closest to the pin. And I have heard it called the CTP. And people are like, what is the CTP, closest to the pin? I don't know how they come up with it. But people get very, so what exactly, it's like it sounds, but exactly how do you do closest to the pin?
Well, closest to the pin is on a par 3 generally, and you hit your tee shot, and if your ball ends up on the green, there's usually a yardage tape that it's a cool device that sits in the hole, and you pull it out and it'll give you your yardage. If you happen to be the first group, or you get up there and there's no one on the green, I highly advise you, even if your ball is 50 feet from the cup, put your name on that little chart. Because if you don't hit the green, if no one else hits the green, you win. So you can only get the closest to the pin award if you're on the green.
Right. And it has to be on your first shot. So if the second shot lands on the green, you can't put your name. There's a little sign and you write your name and how far away you are. So I've seen people put their name down, but it was their second or third shot. So it has to be the first shot. And if you're on the first shot, go look at the little sheet, because on the sheet, it will tell you where the last person was, how far away they were. So if you're within that, then your name goes down. You're a little closer, and a little closer, and a little closer. Because people put the measuring tape away. So it looks like, oh, well, they weren't close, but they were close. So it's a little gizmo.
Yes.
All right, so that's closest to the pin. Let's talk closest to the line.
This is fun. This is generally done on a wide open teeing area where the fairway's wide. It doesn't always have to be a par 5, but it's usually a wide, no bunkers, and it's just a wide, nice fairway. And sometimes the line is just drawn with paint, probably a couple inches wide, down a couple 100 yards down the center of the fairway. And if your ball ends up a foot from the line, there'd be a proximity marker. It's a little sign with a stake that would go in the ground. You place your name on that, and if someone moves, the next group behind you or someone in your group ended up an inch, they'd move it closer. Sometimes this is a fun thing, because people go, oh, that person hits the ball so straight, they're going to win it all the time. They'll do the same thing, but they'll make the line squiggly, so that if you're not in the center of the fairway, you might still be in the fairway, but 20 yards to the right or left of dead center, you might win. Your ball could land on that squiggly line because it's that closest to the line. So again,
let's say there's two people an inch from the line. Is it the person furthest or close? It's just a tie. It doesn't matter how far you hit it. It's just how close you are.
Yeah, it's just how close you are to that line. So sometimes people, I've played in events where they're like, for that deep play, or like, you're great with your wedge, just aim right there. It might even be trying to hit it 20 yards. If they're that good, they could be on the line, and somebody hits a 300 is 15 feet from the line. So it's a fun format.
That's a good one, because I know we have on this call, we do have a long drive person. I know she knows the definition of it. But Demetris, what is the longest drive contest? Demetris, you want to answer that for us, since you tend to win that a lot?
That is the individual that drives their ball to the farthest distance. And yes, I've been fortunate to have a long drive.
Nice. That's awesome. And it generally has to be in the fairway.
In the fairway, absolutely.
Mm-hmm.
Good, good, good. So yeah, and at Women on Course, if you've been to any of our trips, I know Demetrius has been on many, we make up our own contests. Sometimes we'll do how many putts. We ask you to track your number of putts. We've done a sand and a sea contest, meaning how many times does your ball land in the sand and how many times does it land in the water? And you never know at Women on Course if the most in the water wins or the least in the water wins. You never know. And we do sometimes the neatest scorecard, the most complicated looking scorecard. So we will award different awards. Sometimes we do the most honest team. That's the team that has the worst score because they count every stroke. Or we might do the messy middle. So we try to make sure everybody wins a prize. So you never know at Women on Course. Just keep your score because even if you're not the best, you could still win.
No, that's fun. And it is.
So I think that kind of wraps up what we were going to cover. We're about 45 minutes in. So I just wanted to open it up while we have Susan here. If there are any questions or comments or situations they've been in, feel free to chat or take yourself off mute and ask a question.
I did have a question earlier in the chat just on the different formats. So I've played before just in like casual ladies' night events, and I've had a threesome versus a foursome. Someone hasn't showed up for whatever reason. And I've been told that you get an extra stroke for that missing fourth person in like a scramble type format. But I guess I don't know if that's a made up rule or if that's a true rule.
Again, it could be the tournament coordinator of that event. Generally, if there's a missing player, you usually rotate. So like if it was you and I and Donna on the first hole, we could say, okay, Carolyn, you can hit another shot to have another. And then on the next hole, it would be Donna. The next hole, it would be me. And then
that person would play through the whole hole as the fourth person?
Yeah, for that hole. Again, that's the way when somebody doesn't show or they're running late, that's just another way to give every group the same amount of shots into on the hole.
Okay, and that's not cheating. I just wanted to make sure I wasn't cheating.
You'll have your tournament person who's in charge. They give you the answers.
Yes.
Now, someone asked the question, what are the 4 major differences in the new rules? So what I'm going to let you know is next month we have the rules virtual event. And if you would like to, ask some questions, we do go over that at the next one. But what's the number one, Susan, what's the number one rule that you think is the biggest difference?
That is, I think being able to tap down spike marks is you couldn't do that. And sometimes when we had actual spikes in our shoes, not the little rubber nubbies, those spikes would leave marks on the putting green, and you weren't allowed to tap them down, and now you can. So that's huge that you can do that now. I want to say it's a local rule is the out of bounds, where you now don't have to cover the distance again. You can find your ball and come out, and adding a 2-stroke penalty. I think that is for the average player, pretty cool for the amateur to be able to do that.
Yeah, and I think the biggest rule is that you have to stop after 5 over par. That's a big one. That's a big one because people were counting and counting and counting. Maxine has a question.
Sorry, I was just going to ask about the handicaps, which, as you mentioned, just 3 rounds. Is that 3 18-hole rounds? Can it be a 9-hole or 6 9-hole rounds?
Yeah.
I thought it was much more than that, but what's typical for establishing your handicap?
I think it's whatever you can play as long as it gets to 54 holes. I mean, it used to be 10, back in the day. So it's making it a lot easier to get your handicap. And then just as a side note, for your handicap also has an index, which you take when you go play another golf course. Okay, so then if you play the same golf course and let's say you're a 10 handicap, that's awesome. But you go play a really, really hard golf course, that 10 isn't going to help you. So it's probably going to go to a 12 or maybe even a 13, depending on the hardness of the course, the degree of difficulty. So if someone asks you, so because a lot of times we ask for the index, we don't even ask for the handicap, we ask for the index.
All right. Thank you, Susan.
Mm-hmm.
And let's do one more question, just a quick question, Susan, while we have you. Are you allowed to put your pitching wedge on the green while you're putting?
Sure.
You know, you can do it.
That's probably, the pitching wedge is the #1 club that gets left behind.
Yeah.
So what I always tend to tell people when I'm doing an on-course instruction, you don't have to do it anymore, but it used to be when you took the flag stick out, you placed it on the putting surface and you put your extra clubs on the flag stick, because you always have to return the flag stick, so you're not going to leave anything behind. But now, because you don't have to remove the flag stick, put the club that you've used and you don't need anymore on the way to your next tee box.
Yeah.
Don't leave it behind so you're like walking the opposite direction. If the flag sticks in the front and the next tee box is at the back of the green, take that club to the back of the green and then putt your ball.
Yeah. I played an event last week, and every single time on the green, one of the guys that I played with, 3 guys, they picked up the club and held it for me every time. And I wondered if I was not supposed to do that.
No,
So,
they were probably just being nice.
I mean, they would not let me go fetch a ball. If my ball went too far, if we were playing someone else's ball, they would run and collect my ball. They were just typical Texans, super polite, well-mannered, but I wasn't sure if it was good manners or I was really not allowed to do that. So I was checking.
No, you can do that unless, that you might have put it in someone's way or someone's vision. Peripheral vision on the putting green tends to get a little.
They always handed it to me. They always held it while I putted and then handed it to me after.
They're just gentlemen. Everybody needs that.
Yeah.
Guys.
I'll
Well,
play
listen,
again.
I want to thank Susan very much for being here today to help us with this. And
Good
for
luck,
Betsy for sponsoring our virtual event today. And Betsy has put her in the chat a link to her website. So if there's anything you want to get some bling, so makes your swing a little better, that's great. And if you have any comments or suggestions, I will send a follow-up email. And then you can always reply and let us know what you'd like to hear about next time.
Thank you, Donna. Thank you, ladies. And if you can practice your short game. That makes everything better. So if you have time, work on that chipping and putting.
Great.
Thank you